funding initiative and give you a little bit of a sense of sort of lessons learned, what we believe are characteristics of a strong letter of intent, the type of applications that eventually we would really like to see, and then open it up to the floor, and you all can ask whatever is on your minds. So a couple more seats over here. There's one on this side and one on this side over here. So just as a bit of background, ulink is one of President Frank's initiatives that make up the roadmap to our new century.
The UN is and they kind of belong to the provost now, so we can't call them the presidents.
Okay. All right, cool. Yes, I'm sure you did change that.
I tried.
Yes, you tried, and I had my glasses off. All right. So our principle, then I have to read it. The world's most pressing problems cannot be solved by relying on just one discipline. And so you'll see that throughout the RFA and even in the outcomes that are, we're going to try to publicize some of the really great work that our phase 1 teams from this past year have done. And you'll get a pretty clear sense that this is the kind of work that couldn't be done from just one discipline. Sure. So that's really important to us. So we awarded we released the RFA for the first year, the first round of phase 1 funding last year, and our first group of phase 1 teams started in January. They just gave us their final presentations on their work for phase 1, a week ago? Yeah, July 25th. So we have some little video clips and stuff. We feel like make some nice little excerpts from that and post that on the website so you can all get a sense of the really great work that they're doing. So there were 5 of those teams that were fully funded through ulink, and we have an additional few groups that were fellows. And so anyway, if you'd like to check out more of this information, we do now have a very nice website thanks to University of Communications, which is at ulink.miami.edu. And please feel free to join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So we have, and Ali Mosser, where's Ali? She's here. Okay. She's been doing a great job managing the social media, and it's really quite a lot of work. We've also been the lead on generating a lot of this content and making sure we're interviewing teams and the team members and getting their photos and everything. That's all been spearheaded by Orange Umbrella, which is a student-run consultancy in the School of Communication. We do advertising and PR. So now these students are sort of getting a different view of their professors, right? So they get to know them in a slightly different way. So this year we have funding that's available for up to 8 teams, and it's $40,000 for each team. And the real purpose behind phase 1 funding is to provide conceptually sort of protected time. And every time we say this, like on the medical campus, or people who are, have their positions through the medical campus, they go, we don't know what you mean. Right? So, but anyway, it's like basically we need each member of a ulink team to commit 10% of their time. Right? That $40,000 needs to be divided equally among the team members, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit later. But conceptually, it's just a way of making sure that you really feel like we recognize that your time is worth something, right? And we're providing a little bit of compensation for that. How your dean or department chair wants to handle that, there seems to be a good spread of philosophies about this, but we do have your chairs and deans sign a letter of support with this understanding that yes, if you get funded, you're going to be spending 10% of your time on these activities. So in addition to the $40,000, we have a mandatory Science of Team Science training that all of the ulink phase 1 and phase 2 teams are going to be going through. And this is in recognition of the fact that while all of us are trained in our own disciplines, right, and we all do a great job within our own disciplines, one of the things that almost no one gets any training in is how to collaborate, right, and especially not how to collaborate across disciplines, where each discipline's language might be different and their approach to research might be fundamentally different, or scholarship in general. So we want to give you the tools and the language, right, and a space to kind of connect with, the other folks on your team, and to kind of acquire these sort of skills and this knowledge base for how to collaborate well, and do that in this kind of environment. So we also integrate librarians, and we have some of our fabulous librarians here. This is one of the features that really makes the ulink unique. Kelly Miller is one of our action team members, and so we're actually using this as a platform to really advance the kind of work that's being done at the libraries. We're kind of crafting a new vision for what it means to have a library at a Research One institution, and how librarians can be integrally involved in the collaborations, like interdisciplinary collaborations. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that? Or have I stolen your thunder? I'm sorry.
No, but I'm happy that you're still, I mean, it's wonderful to hear you talk about it. No, we're just delighted to be a part of this process. Not just delighted, but we think it's actually one of the most important things we're doing right now, because it's so experimental, because it's new, that librarians would be part of teams doing interdisciplinary research. In part, I should say we're part of the teams, not so much to share because we know that a particular area of our expertise is relevant, but because we are curious about how interdisciplinary research is happening at the university. Where are you running into challenges, or where are you getting stuck, whether it's with tools or resources or strategies? Where are the gaps? And we in the library are trying to learn how to adapt our services, our collections, our resources to better serve these critical activities at the university. So it's a very exciting place for us to be, and we are also learning more about how collaboration happens. So I like that you mentioned that too, Susan, because we see that within libraries too, our work is becoming more and more team-based, and so that's intriguing to us. What are those skills that we need to be fostering and developing ourselves?
That's fantastic. So we're hoping that this is a very symbiotic relationship,
Yes.
and so far the experiment for phase 1 worked out by and large like really well, because we weren't quite sure what to expect. Those of you who are librarians, will you raise your hand? And so like in our social mixer, please feel free to chat up the librarians and find out what their experiences were working with ulink teams, or what their vision was.
So I want to say one thing, which
Yes.
is, some of them may say, well, my experience was mixed. But that's not because it's a bad idea. It's because we involved them at a very late stage. And it's obviously crucial that everybody be involved right from the beginning, which is a mistake we won't make this time. So if they say their experience was good, then it was really good.
Oh, you mean the librarians?
Yes, and if they say it was mixed,
it's all
then
good.
see that as good.
Well, Susan and I, this came about so organically and in conversation and collaboration, because Susan was telling me about the program, and I was like sort of thinking, gosh, what would it be like? So we did add the librarians late, but maybe just in time.
Yeah.
And
it was a few weeks into the process. Yeah.
Yeah. But what the wonderful thing is now, if you're applying for a project, you could talk with me or librarians you know, or Susan, and somehow we'll get you connected with a librarian who might be able to provide support for you on your team. So now there's a little bit more organic nature to it, so it's getting better. And one thing I will add is that we are only one of 3 universities in North America that is trying out this type of experimentation. So it's kind of cutting edge in its own way.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of libraries, funded ulink teams also have access to designated space in each of the libraries. So there's a space at the Rasmus Library, there's a space in the Calder Library on the first floor. If you go through the doors and veer to the left and go all the way to the back. And also here at Richter on the 3rd floor, so the collaboratory space that some faculty use to videotape themselves, whatever, we're going to zhuzh that space. So we're in the process of selecting furniture and design, we're going to repaint it, we're going to do all that stuff. So because we know that space is at a premium for many schools and departments, right? And you need a place that's going to be easy to schedule instead of having to go through central scheduling and then waiting for somebody to get back to you. And then you're competing with other people that need that same space, blah, blah, blah. This way you don't have to worry about space as being something that gets in your way and it, is a barrier to the process of collaboration. And also, the lovely Dr. Johnson is here. So, Dr. Joanna Johnson, will you wave your hand so they know who you are? Joanna's done a really great job of working with some of our teams that when they hit a sort of a hard sticking point and they need some meeting facilitation services, Joanna comes in and sort of plays therapist, right? That was one of the words of a ulink phase 1 team last week, called them her therapists. So anyway, so Joanna is available for this if you get into a jam. And then phase one teams are the only teams that have eligibility for phase 2 funding. Phase 2 funding is $150,000 a year for 2 years, contingent upon satisfactory progress. So, anything else to add to that? Okay, great. Okay, so strong proposals and strong LOIs meet 2 key criteria. This is where these are the 2 things really that when we were looking through the 42 LOIs and the 18 applications, a lot of our critique came down to these 2 key criteria. One is the project that's being proposed truly interdisciplinary? Or is this a recycled grant proposal to which you have added a couple of people that you know from a couple of departments that sound different enough? Right? So it really needs to be significantly interdisciplinary. If you want sort of a hard test of this, is like if you're in a STEM field, have you added a non-STEM field? If you're a non-STEM field, have you added something from STEM? That's not a make or break kind of thing. It's just a really easy way of looking at it. If you're in biology and you add somebody from microbiology, it's unlikely that they're going to find that very interdisciplinary.
So Susan says that because at the medical school, we think that it's interdisciplinary if somebody from physiology works with somebody from biochemistry, but they're actually doing the same research, so it's not very interdisciplinary.
Right. And we have enough diversity in our ulink action team that we know. Anyway. And then the other really large category, it revolves around whether or not the problem that's being identified is big enough, right? Like, does this really constitute a grand challenge to society? Right now, there's a big continuum there, because we did come across applications that we were like, that is so cool. Like, that is a really cool question, or it's a really cool problem. And we'd love to see the answers to that, and we'd love to see this team explore it, but it's not really a grand challenge, it's just really cool. So we can't just fund something that's awesome, right? So it really has to meet this bar of being something that is, if you're familiar with the term wicked problem, right? Something that's really complicated and something that would be very difficult to ever address, period, but certainly not without the participation of multiple disciplines.
And something that's important to society.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that the work that I'm doing is important to society, but if you look at it from a bigger perspective, it's not that important. So the idea is that we're trying to address problems that if you went out in the community and said, this is what we're doing, they'd say, wow, I'm interested in that.
Right. Yeah, your third cousin once removed should be like pretty impressed that you moved to that. Assuming you're not an academic. So strong LOIs. Well, academics may be more impressed. Okay, so strong LOIs are not going to propose sort of just the testing of some hypotheses. That's not the purpose of phase 1 funding. So you're not, the proposal shouldn't revolve around collecting pilot data. It's really about you all coming together as a team, as a really cohesive, sort of a team that has a shared vision. And we want to see you guys spend a lot of time in each other's presence, right? So there should be a plan for how you're going to get together and where you're going to do that. On our social media page, I know somewhere on our Facebook page, I uploaded the field guide to Team Science. You can just download it from the NIH. It's readily available. So it's a really nice guideline for how to conduct interdisciplinary team science. It's very helpful. It would be really important for an LOI to give us a clear sense of some specific activities and accomplishments for phase 1, but it doesn't need to be lengthy. We just want to know that you have some goals, right? Like you have a bit of a vision there, and a plan for how to achieve those. And of course, we want LOIs to make it clear how each person's discipline or methodology will advance inquiry into the topic that you've identified. So it should be like, well, we've known each other for a long time and we work well together. You know, those things are great and they're pretty important, but it doesn't speak to how that discipline uniquely contributes to the pursuit of ideas in your area. And to treat co-PIs as co-leaders. Like we've kind of been talking about this. It seems like folks who have a lot of experience with grant funding find this to be particularly challenging because, for federal funding, right, you have 5% of this person's time, 2% of that person's time, 18% of this person's time, or 20%, whatever. And to have that imbalance is not only, it's super common, right? It's sort of the way things get done. But that's not the purpose of ULink. Right? We want the teams to enter into this process with a very clear sense that every person's discipline provides some really valuable input into addressing whatever the problem is.
I just wanted to add that the letter of intent should also make it clear that at the end of this process, at the end of phase 1, you're not just going to be a coherent team that speaks the same language. That's great. But you also will need to know what problem it is exactly that you're addressing and how you will do that if you are in phase 2. What exactly will be the activities and how has the work that you've done in the first 8 or 9 months allowed you to be in a position to carry those out.
Right. Yeah, so it's your really good plan for how you're gonna decide what your clear activities are gonna be for phase 2. And be ready to go. So we have a lot of facts on the website, which apparently cannot be read on these screens. So yeah, small. They're just little facts. Things like, can you skip phase 1 and just apply for phase 2? No. What activities is required for phase 1 of ULink? We just talked about those. How many teams, we've talked about that. So anyway, so refer folks who weren't able to come today to the website. So a lot of these things have been answered. I think one of the things has continued to come up is, I'm not in a tenure track line. Am I still eligible to participate in ULink? So this is one of the stickiest issues that we've faced, actually, because we have a lot of really very smart, well-trained, insightful people who are in instructor lines, right? And yet no part of their job duties involve research, right? So there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of brain power that's, in these instructor lines. So you are permitted to add, instructors can participate in the ULink program. It's just that we can't buy out a percentage of their time. What we do hope is that, because phase 2 has the clear and explicit goal of competing for external funds, that you can then write those people into the budget for your external funding proposals. And that is a way for them to then receive, financial compensation. The schools sort of receive financial compensation so that they can be bought out of 1 or more classes, or whatever it is that would be helpful. So they get the prestige, but they get to be part of that, the process of collaboration and of knowledge generation, and hopefully eventually publications, right? So it's still a way of building, of engaging in interdisciplinary research and reaping some of the rewards of conducting research. Okay. Questions? Which I hope. But so action team members, will you all raise your hands if you like action team folks? So we have multiple people here, so you can get perspectives from not just me, but also other folks.
What was the breakdown of the teams,
The breakdown in what way?
the funded teams from last year?
Uh-huh.
In terms of the schools being involved.
Oh, the schools being involved.
Medical
So,
schools.
all of the schools were involved. So we
No,
had.
I know. How many of them had the medical school then?
Oh. The microbiome, oceans and human health. Yeah, so.
I think just 2 out of the 5.
May I repeat that question for a business school?
Oh, you know,
How
we
many
had,
make business?
I don't, do we have,
I think it might have been one in school.
so I have it on
2 of them
my,
had.
Business was not common.
business was not common. They weren't common at the application stage either.
But this was before
Ditto for
Henry
law.
Palmquist was here, so maybe that's going to make an enormous.
I mean, I will say that some of the milestones for phase 1 can be process milestones instead of in addition to scientific milestones, and we actually appreciate that a lot. So you could put in phase 1 how you would go around building the team, setting, guidelines for talking to each other, organizing conferences which you would bring experts in to define and refine the problem that you said. So even if you don't have a history of working with these people already, you could write into phase 1 that we would come together as a cohesive team during phase 1 to set us up for phase 1.
So what is the median size? Sorry.
Yeah, you go.
You go ahead.
Can I go?
Yes.
So what is the median size?
Median size. So the statistics, the median, what are the 95?
4 was the smallest, by far the smallest.
10 was the
The largest?
largest, 10.
10, yeah. I mean, the answer is, the median is probably around 5.
We actually talked about the active numbers.
But we didn't do those statistics.
Larger teams than
Yes.
You say lecturer lines aren't eligible for the buyout time. How about research scientists, postdocs, and so on, whose time is available?
So the ulink is designed to support faculty time so that faculty can engage in this process. The phase 1 process that can't afford to support the time of students or postdoctoral fellow because it's only $40,000. Phase 2 would be different. If there was a crucial postdoctoral student who was involved in phase 2, that's possible. But not for phase 1.
How about the ulink postdoc?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there is a ulink postdoc position. We have a number of interdisciplinary efforts going on at ulink, and one of them is novel, which is a postdoctoral position that we've just opened about a month or so ago. The idea of the postdoctoral position is that someone who is about to obtain a PhD or within a year or so of obtaining a PhD can identify at least 2 mentors here at the University of Miami who work in different disciplines, and with them propose a project that would be done at the University of Miami that would be an interdisciplinary project essentially fostered and led by the postdoc and under the mentorship of these at least 2 individuals here at the University of Miami. And it's a nice stipend and a little bit of money for research as well. So that mechanism exists. We can only afford 1 each year so far, but if you know anybody or know people who might be suitable for this, you should let them know because it looks like a great opportunity to me.
What is the deadline on that, the application?
It's open.
Yeah.
It's a rolling deadline.
So on the ulink website, each of the projects at the end paragraph, it tells you who is on, and in each, which school they're in. So.
There was a lot of work you figured it out.
Yeah. Yes.
Is this only for the 9-month period, the academic year, or does this go across the summer?
So the funding period for phase 1 runs from January to August. So, and then, there's the application, so we require a final presentation, which would be great. It's a nice little symposium. And and that's really at the point when the phase 1 teams are developing their application for phase 2.
And is there any problem with bringing in a community member, community person?
We
Because-
really, so we can't pay them,
Right.
right? But we strongly encourage the inclusion of stakeholders, community stakeholders. So that would be viewed as a strength.
Okay, and the idea is to get the project together. You don't have to actually start collecting data and doing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you're just, this is the discussion.
That's right.
Phase that we're
Absolutely.
talking about.
I mean, our first experience was that each of the teams collected a little bit of data, but what they mostly did was come together, understand what they were doing, and define the problem really clearly, and begin to figure out how they were going to attack.
And the teams have to be, of course, a minimum of, you mentioned 2 schools?
Yeah, well, it's 2 disciplines,
Two
right?
disciplines.
You know, so, we've got the same or similar disciplines in multiple schools. So just because you bridge schools doesn't mean that it's interdisciplinary.
And by the way, it could be interdisciplinary without bridging schools. So arts
That's
and
right.
sciences
Yes.
has a lot of different disciplines.
Tons,
for
right.
example.
Just a quick clarification on that last point. Do you want these community leaders or collaborators, do you want their names in the letter of intent?
I think it's great.
If you know who
I
they
mean,
are,
you know
that's
what are, yeah.
it's a plus.
I mean, you could even, you might be at the stage where it's like, you've identified some really great community stakeholders or government organizations or whatever, and you go like, we're gonna reach out to them and do this, like, whatever information that you have at this point, that's great, but you don't have to have a signed letter of support from a specific individual at this stage. So it might be something that we ask before for the full application.
When is this due?
So the LOI is due on the 17th of August.
Correct.
Yeah.
The LOI is really short. You
Yeah.
just have to figure out who's on your team.
Yeah, it's 1,000 words.
Susan, I just had would you mind bringing up a website for me? I was thinking about your wicked problems or wicked questions, sort of grand challenges referenced earlier. And one of the things I've been thinking about is sort of how the groups are identifying the question or articulating the research question.
Yeah.
And what one site that I find particularly inspirational as you're thinking about how to express what it is that what societal problem or challenge is the sustainabledevelopment.un.org site.
Yeah.
Because what's interesting, if we pull it up, something interesting happens if I look at the projects we have funded, the ones that there's a kind of clustering that's been happening, and I know Susan and the action team, we've been talking about how the ulink projects could address, any societal impact question. So it is if you click on topics, Susan, you'll get a fabulous infographic.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
This is a PC and all.
Yeah, there we go. And then if you pull it up a little bit, it starts to. That's right. Sustainable development.
Topics. Yeah, so this says it's topics. You want milestones?
Do you have the one with the infographic?
Oh, it's sustainabledevelopment.un.org.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay.
Remember they changed their site?
Yeah, shoot.
But it's still, but look, we can
Yeah, you
click
can
on
see
any
it.
one of
It's
these.
just different.
Let's
It's
go.
just easier to.
Let's go education.
I just want to see. Most of the projects, in a nutshell, what I was going to say is most of the projects that we've funded in one way or another are climate change related.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would be so helpful to see.
That's so.
It's a knowledge
It's
platform.
not.
Yeah.
Look, it's right there.
There's
Oh, here.
We're having technical
Oh, it might just be the different one.
Yeah.
This is fun.
I don't know why we're getting two different versions.
one could be the mobile view.
Yeah, so like here's one of them.
Well, here, that's the way we can do it.
So-
But you can start to see, we're actually, so the UN, I mean, and obviously you could argue with which topics they've chosen and how they've numbered them or, ordered them. But the way they rise above, and give you that 40,000-foot view is quite helpful, I think.
Absolutely.
And would help, and helps the team.
I don't want to knock it off the
Yeah,
table.
but if you go forward, most of our projects are at 13. We're on Sustainable Development Goal 13, which is around climate change. Which is why Susan mentioned in her message that we're really interested too in projects that have a cultural or sort of arts or humanities question.
But we don't want to prejudice people too much. You don't have to work on climate change.
Right.
It was a frequent theme and a number of applications, but certainly not a requirement. The other one that can be really inspirational to look at is, it's the MacArthur Foundation, right? The 100 and Change initiative, where they give out one award of $100 million, which just blows my mind. But anyway, when you read about the projects that were selected to submit full applications, those are really inspirational, really pretty amazing.
In addition to the ones that were not selected, which they give a very good brief on those too. So.
Yes.
That's true. That's good, right.
Probably most people know the Rabbits and Funtowitz definition of wicked problems. But if not, it's that it's of extremely pressing concern in terms of time. It has highly contested information. There's information that's known and there's information that's unknown. That there's high tension in values, and there's no clear single solution. So you can take that and apply it to many things other than climate change.
Right. Other questions? Oh, it's true. We did do that. You know, I don't know if we would end up doing that this year. I think we have like such a much stronger idea. Yeah.
So, do you have any kind of like networking assistance available, so you have an idea?
You betcha. We are your Yentas, right? So if there is like an area of expertise, like you have a really, what you hope is a really great idea, and you've got like maybe one piece of the puzzle like locked in, like, but you're not sure how to identify another person with the expertise that you need, please feel free to get in touch with me. Allie Mosser is here. She's another person in the OVPR, the Office of the Vice Provost for Research. And so she will be helping me make sure that you get connected with the right sorts of people. Another tool that can be really helpful, but you kind of play around with it, it's called Pivot. Right? So we have an institutional subscription to Pivot. It's just pivot.org, I think it is. And so you sign in with your university credentials, and you just like set up, you don't even have to set up a profile if you don't want to. It's a great tool for identifying sources for external funding. And let's say you put in your topic area, right, and it pulls up, so, and it's like pretty global. It's like, opportunities here in Canada and Europe, and elsewhere, and you pull up this RFA. So yeah, it's cool to look at the RFA, but one of the really cool features of Pivot is that on the right-hand side of the page, it will give you a list of suggested collaborators within your institution. So that can be a very easy way of identifying some people who might be, helpful, and you can just click on their names and then look at their profile, right? So and the more that you fill out your profile in Pivot, the more accurate the results are going to be for other people who are searching for your expertise, let's say. So it's useful for both of these things, for identifying potential sources of external funding, whether it's foundation or federal or whatever. It's pretty agnostic when it comes to the source of the funding, but it also is really helpful when it comes to identifying potential collaborators in a given topic area. So, but failing that, or you look at Pivot and go, not for you, like let us know. But, then I'll get on Pivot for you. So.
Can you talk a little bit more about the activities and accomplishments for phase one in terms of, I'm trying to think about putting this LOI together, and it sounds like a lot of you were saying you have to do team forming and stuff like that. So how, can you give some more examples in terms of what that might look like, I guess?
Yeah.
kinds of things you might.
So, one of the things that some teams do is they sort of start a journal club, right? So where, each person circulates, one or two really key articles in their field, addressing that problem area kind of from their disciplinary perspective. And then, it's kind of like, it's almost like a book club, right? And then you meet and you discuss the articles, and the person whose discipline it is that week, right? Talks about, well, like here's the language that we use, and here's how we kind of approach it, and the sort of methodologies that tend to be used here, and everybody takes a turn and presents how that is, and then you all go like, oh my God, what? Like really? Like that's really weird. And you start, having these discussions. And but meeting weekly, I think, is really important. Some of the teams did meet every other week, so I think that's like not out of the realm of what's reasonable. But I wouldn't plan on it being a monthly meeting or anything like that. I think the weekly is pretty ideal. Another thing that some of the teams did was have weekly presentations that would take turns, like presenting on their own work, right? That might be relevant to the identified problem. So some folks are going to bring methodological expertise, like to say, okay, this is kind of how I do things in my field. Like I haven't researched this exact topic, but I have a strong interest in it, and here's kind of what my discipline has to say about it, and here's the work that I think is kind of the most relevant, whatever. But within that methodological realm. So I think that's really important. One of the teams organized a symposium, and they invited some external folks, community partners, and folks who have a lot to say about it, government partners that had some input. And so they met, and then one part of the day was like a working workshop, like what kinds of things, what kind of action might we be able to take in the future and collect data on for efficacy. And then the second part of it was a public presentation, and it was open. It was extremely well attended. So anyway, so that was really cool. What else?
Shared graduate students.
Yeah. So they cross-trained some of their doctoral students, and so they had some of their doctoral students work with in somebody else's lab for a while. So it was like a little bit of an exchange, so that they could get acquainted with the methods and language and process in another field. Some of them did field trips. Right? Like they went to another organization that was like doing a lot of stuff that was really relevant to their topic area, and did that. One of the fellows teams received supplemental funding or approval for supplemental funding to go to a conference together. It was an interdisciplinary conference on that particular topic area, which we were really enthusiastic about, because not only is it a really cool interdisciplinary conference on that topic, and you get knowledge, but it's also a set of shared experiences that the team members have, right, which kind of helps to with that sort of team formation process. So
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So to attend, so interdisciplinary conference,
Yeah.
so the purpose, the money should come from the supplementary fund, not from the 40K.
Yeah. Well, some people did budget for it in the 40K, but if you didn't envision it and an opportunity comes up, you shouldn't be shy about presenting it to us. But as a proposed,
it's not guaranteed.
Yeah, okay. Right, exactly. Contingent upon available funding. It's some restriction if you apply. You're not trying to sit down.